Hi everyone, episode 2 of I Still Don't Know. Aussie Dave, G-Ab. Now Dave's just sorted out English lessons for G-Ab. And he likes a routine, this Aussie Dave. So in the morning he's getting up and G-Ab, which is very unusual, with him down to the beach, swim. A lot of Thai girls don't like swimming in the sea. They don't like swimming. But she was sporty physique, very fit, swimming with him. Then he's going to the old Grinch, grumpy old lady for the massage, and G-Ab as well. Another lady there. Both get a massage. G-Ab's dropped into his routine. Can't separate them. So every morning, swim, massage on the beach. They've laid out the sheets on the beach and doing the massage on the sheets. Still get sand all over you, but anyway, he loves them. And after that, they go off to breakfast somewhere. And quite often, I was now in Soy BJ, middle of Walking Street, in this bar, really dark bar it was, not much light in there, and I was living in a room upstairs. But in the mornings I was getting up early, down, and I was getting out, walk along the beach and breakfast. And yeah, it started to become a routine. Halfway along the beach, Dave and G-Ab would come along, this one restaurant, and I'd be coming towards them, and we'd end up in the same restaurant having breakfast together. And I met G-Ab many times. But Dave introduced me the first time, and yeah, she was beautiful, and he told me the story. Even when she was sat there, he told me the story, and I'd never heard anything like it. He was, I wouldn't say he was in love, he was in control. He was a control freak. And having all that money and the way his upbringing things, it made him that way. But he's just one of those guys you hate. He had everything. If you were in a bar and the karaoke started, he'd get up and sing, and he's got a great voice. And you think, hate him. And the six-pack, he was just, he was just a perfect looking guy. Had everything. And now he had G-Ab. So quite often we'd have the breakfast, and in the evening, late afternoon, he'd come into the bar and he'd be questioning and watching everything and giving me clues on how to make better money and get customers in and all this. And as I mentioned, he wanted a bar in Walking Street, a big bar. Now quite often when I'm in my bar, you get times where you're just so fed up. Maybe there was too many customers or not enough. Needed a break, and I would get out of the bar for an hour, and I'd end up in other bars, having a drink. But over those first 6 months of his, and the 6 months, if it was that long I had that bar, we'd get out. I'd go out with him in the evening, and we'd also hook up with another friend of mine who had a go-go bar at the end of the road. And Dave was like, I'm going to look at a bar, come and have a look. So we'd go off and look at some bars, and he was seriously thinking, and money was no object. He was seriously thinking. So we did spend some time, but he left G-Ab in my bar drinking, which was strange because customers are going to come in and hit on her, but so we went out, boys, had a couple of drinks, looked at a couple of bars. G-Ab wasn't mad on drinking. She tended to drink soft drinks. I didn't see her drunk in that first 6 months at all. But Dave couldn't find a bar in that 6 months. He just couldn't find one. Maybe 5 months into his holiday. So he'd been with G-Ab for about 4 months. Her English was improving, really improving. As I said, G-Ab was tall, very attractive, and Dave would give her anything. She didn't ask for anything, but he would give her. He bought her some really smart clothes, very smart clothes. He bought her some lovely sunglasses, Oakley or whatever, Ray-Bans and things. money was no object. He really smartened her up, and she looked stunning. But the one thing most Thai women have a problem with is the bridge of their nose. Their nose curves in and comes out, and they put sunglasses on and they slip down the nose. They don't sit properly. And I remember hearing the conversation, and then Dave told me that Giab, like many Thai girls, wanted a nose the same as Westerners, with a bridge that the sunglasses would sit on, and that Thai girls think it would improve them and move them up the ladder. And Dave told me that she wanted a nose job. Now, that was available in that time, 15 years ago, for probably $100, $150. It was a minor operation and quite cheap. But no, not for Dave. Only the best. Dave, in the last month he was there, took Giab. They went to Bangkok. He went to the biggest and most expensive hospital in Bangkok. Forgive me, I forget the name of it, but it was the expensive one. And Giab wanted the nose job. Now, I thought she was a really pretty girl, very pretty. They spent a week up there, 3 or 4 or 5 days after the operation for her to get better, and then reappeared and came back down to Pattaya. Now, when I saw when they first walked in, Giab still had a plaster over her nose and a bit of bruising around the eyes and nose, so I couldn't work out what the final look was like. But she was happy, and he'd spent, as I said, it was only about $150 operation back then, but as usual he'd been spent the equivalent of maybe $1,000 for the same operation, but at the top hospital. He wanted the best. So he had her nose job done, and over the next couple of weeks all the bruising had gone, and we could finally see the new Giab with the nose job. My opinion, it took her beauty away. It did not look right. She could put the sunglasses on now and she was happy and loved it, loved her new nose. They just built the bridge up, but she'd lost that Thai look. She almost looked like Philippine, Malaysian, I don't know, but she'd lost that look. It wasn't Giab. But she was happy. I mean, if she was happy, Dave was happy. Aussie Dave, over the moon. His girlfriend can now wear her Oakley Ray-Ban glasses comfortably on her new nose. Now, Dave's time came up. He'd planned 6 months, he'd paid for 6 months, everything, and he was heading back to Australia. He didn't want to take Giab with him on this trip. He was going back for about 3 months, and it was business, sort things out. He had a maintenance company that he'd set up to maintain all his condos, and he also was making investments when any property outside of Sydney on the outskirts was coming up cheap. He was buying these houses, putting his little gang in, which he made a little bit bigger. They'd renovate the house, and then he was renting it to the government for low income people, which I thought was great. So he was investing in some properties, wasn't selling them, just renting them out to low income peoples, and he was gradually building his portfolio and buying more and more, and this team were doing this for him as well as maintaining the condos. So he'd go back and he'd set up a plan for the next 3 months, 6 months for what they were going to buy and do up and things like this. So he didn't want to take Giab the first time back, but he had to set her up with accommodation, money, everything taken care of. So for this 3 months he kept that hotel room and booked it, paid for it for the next 3 months, so that Giab's stuff she didn't have to move, she could stay there, and hopefully she would keep the routine that he had, and she would continue, and he paid more money to the English teacher to spend more hours, and so Gia was 2-3 hours every day learning English, and money for shopping and food, and then she'd just have to see her friends and kick about. But he made sure that she had enough money. So knowing Aussie Dave, he gave her loads of money into a bank account, set everything up, she was sorted, and off he went back to Australia. Now 3 months was only 12 weeks. Giab, I continued in the mornings, and he asked me to try and keep an eye on Giab and make sure she was okay. But as I said, in my first bar, it sort of all closed down, and then I started on the next bar, which was Soy 7. So this sort of time, I was then off and living in Soy 7 by this time, if my calculations are right. So I wasn't far at all from Giab. But the restaurant, cafe, we used to go in the mornings, me and Dave, was further towards Walking Street. So I'd come out Soy 7 in the morning, not every day, but a few, and I'd walk along the beach that way towards Walking Street, go past the cafe, then come back after exercise. And Giab was there. We met a few times, and I'd said to her that I found a new cafe in the top of Soy 7, and that she was welcome if she wanted to try that with me. No problem. Or she continued there. But she stuck in her routine. She went swimming, she went for the massage, and she got the crinkly old lady that Dave used. Oh, those massages, it was only 150, 200 baht for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was crazy money, really cheap. But yeah, in the morning, I'd sometimes have breakfast with her. Kept looking at that nose thinking, no, that hasn't improved her looks. Her English was getting great, really good, and she became a really good friend. She chatted to me, she was open. Her English, as I say, was getting better. I understood her more, and she was happy, but she was bored as well. Nothing to do apart from the English. But she knew it was only 12 weeks. They spoke every day, so that 12 weeks soon shot by. But about 8 weeks in, Giab started appearing in my Soy 7 bar in the evening. Now I'd already told Frozen and my staff who she was and what she was, and that she was with Dave. So everyone knew who she was, and she'd be in. We just ran a tab behind the bar every time she had a drink, and she'd settle it at the end of the week. So there's a few weeks, but she came in and she started drinking alcohol, and she actually got drunk a few nights, and I had to get her back to her room on the back of a motorcycle taxi. Either my security guard or one of the girls, or sometimes it was me, would go on a bike, 3 of us on a bike, to get her back. But she got drunk quite a few times. That wasn't a good sign. She was missing Dave. But luckily 12 weeks came up, and back he came. Giab over the moon, Dave over the moon, very happy I'd helped out and she was alright. But I'd said to him, look, she was drinking, she's bored, you can't leave her. And he said, no, next time I will take her back with me. And his plan this time, again, 6 months. And he hadn't seen my new bar, so he'd come, loved it. And again, he's umming and ahhing about having his own bar, but now he's looking at my Soy 7 bar, he's like, sort of perked his interest again. But so he's back. He stayed in the same hotel again. He's paid for another 6 months. Don't know what he was paying, but he was getting a good deal by paying for 6 months in advance. So he'd been there 6 months, 3 months for Giab, another, over a year paid for that room. That hotel must have loved him. So much money. So he was back for 6 months. Gia was over the moon. Her English was getting great. Really good. Nose, still not sure about that nose. And that's them happily moving on and moving forward. On the next episode, we'll talk about breasts, shall we? See you on the next one.